In today's podcast titled Our Traumatic Experiences, you will be introduced to 4 stories where we talk about our experiences of traumatic events. Where we hear about a boy who was in a practice car crash, we'll also hear about a young boy who is playing baseball with his friends and experiences a traumatic event that him and his friends thought never could happen. A boy falls his face first off a 5-foot rail where... What happened here? Here, let's restart that. In today's podcast titled Our Dramatic Experiences, you will be introduced to 4 stories where we talk about our experiences of traumatic events. Where we hear about a boy who was in a practice car crash, we will also hear about a young boy who is playing baseball with his friends and experiences a traumatic event that him and his friends thought never could happen. A boy falls off his face off a 5-foot rail, and where 2 boys crash on a sled and one friend lands on his arm. The first story is by Evan G., where he helped the fire department practice a car crash.
It was a cool September night. I had just got done with school, and I rode the bus home. When I got home, my dad was standing by his car, which was unusual. When I walked up to him, he asked me, "Want to help me with some fire department stuff?" I agreed and then got in the car. We made our way to the fire hall. When we got there were a few people there, and my dad went up and talked with them. I saw another car pull up, and it was my friend Braden. I chatted with him, and then my dad got Braden and I into the car. We drove to a spot near my house, and there were 3 beat-up cars. He had me put on some safety glasses. Then I climbed into the driver's seat of one of the cars, and Braden got into the passenger seat. My brother and a few other people got into the other cars, and then my dad asked, "Are y'all ready?" Then he radioed in that we were ready. A few minutes passed, and then I could hear the distant wailing of the fire trucks. They pulled up, and almost the whole fire department was there. They got to work right away, assessing the situation, checking on us, and calling for an ambulance. We were told not to talk or move. The firefighters got the cutter, otherwise known as the jaws of life. They started cutting the doors off the car and the corners to peel the roof off. They got Braden on a backboard and hauled him off to the ambulance, then they started on me. I was in a weird position, so it took a little bit longer. Once they got the roof peeled back, they put the backboard on the seats and slid me onto it. They slowly slid me out. Finally, they hauled me off to the ambulance, then they got me on a stretcher, and I was done. Finally, I got to see this whole scene. There were like 5 fire trucks and an ambulance. All the lights were flashing, and they're still cutting my brother out. It was cool but scary. Everything was real except for the accident. Then the next morning, we picked up the trash and parts. By noon, the cars were gone and only the glass was left.
The second story is by Nick G., where he and some friends were playing baseball outside.
Traumatic event playing baseball. It was a warm summer day in 2010. It was about 75 to 80 degrees outside that day. I was 7 years old at the time. Me and a couple friends decided we wanted to play baseball outside in the backyard at my house. So we grabbed a baseball bat and baseball. We then brought both things in the backyard, but we didn't have any bases to set down. So we came up with an idea where the edge of the patio on the right side was first base. Second base was the sprinkler box control system. Sprinkler box control system was like a cover in the ground. It was level with the grass. It was a green cover made of plastic that we had chose as second base. Third base was at the edge of the swing set on the left side. Home plate was the other sprinkler box control system on the other side of the yard. Baseball was my favorite sport at the time. I always played it with my friends almost every day. I was obsessed with the sport. We played baseball at all our friends' houses. It was just a regular day of baseball at my house. I was up to bat and my team was winning. I had a couple of base hits already that game. My friend threw the ball. I made solid contact on the ball. I hit the ball on the ground right in between third base and second base. I sprinted as fast as I could to first base, rounded first base, decided to go to second base. I sprinted as fast as I could. My friend was sprinting towards me, and I slid into second base, a sprinkler box control system. Then, all of a sudden, I looked down at my knee, and it was tore open so deep. I started screaming as loud as I could. I hurt my leg so bad. I was so terrified. It looked as if my knee was torn down to my bone. I limped downstairs the sliding door, holding my knee. My neighbor could hear me scream from across the road in their house. My parents called 911 and the first responders and ambulance arrived to my house. They wrapped my knee in a bandage. Then I was on my way to the emergency room. It turns out I cut my knee down to the hypodermis, the white spongy type flesh. It cut so deep there was hardly any blood. I needed 50 stitches for this wound. My friends were so confused about what happened. Still to this day, me and my friends have no clue how I cut my knee open. The sprinkler box control system was just a cover that was just plastic and not sharp at all, and it was just smooth.
In the next story, Blake falls on his face on a cold winter night skiing.
I was spending most of my winter skiing. I ski in the terrain park and do jump and rail tricks and that sort of thing. I learned a lot of tricks, usually without falling too badly or getting very hurt. But there was one time last year that this wasn't the case. Last year in January I had a bad fall and as a result I messed up my face, and here's how it happened. It was a very cold night at Welch, and this wouldn't be very important unless you know that snow is very hard in cold weather. Also, it was my second night back on snow from an injury. That night wasn't really turning out to me. I under-rotated a lot that day, and that was when you don't spin far fast enough to land straight, so I fell quite a bit that day and ended up with more than a few bruises all over my body from the hard snow. It wasn't just me that wasn't having a good time. Many of the other park riders that I ski with weren't having fun either. I just blamed the cold for sucking out all my energy. It was too cold. Towards the later part of that night, I and some friends were sessioning a rail at the top of the park that was a down rail. A session is when you focus on one feature and spend your time there on that feature. And a down rail is a rail that goes down and you can't see anything besides the lip of the jump onto it and the top of the rail, and it is angled downwards. So we're taking turns hitting the rail. When it is my turn, I was doing just easy slides to switch and forwards, just simple easy slides. When it was my turn to drop, it was probably 9:30 at night or so, and I decided I would try something different. I tried to do a lip blind 2, which is where you take off on the side of the rail and spin a blind 270 onto the rail. I caught my tails of the skis on the rail, and when I spun, I fell face first. As the snow was very hard, I scraped the skin off my face. I was all bloody, and I left that night, not ever wanting to ski again.
It was a winter day in 2014. I woke up that morning and went downstairs to go eat some breakfast, and I looked outside and all I could see was white. It snowed about 6 inches overnight, and it was still snowing all morning. It was the first day of the year that it snowed, and I was very happy because winter is my favorite season of the year. I love winter because of snowmobile, sledding, and skiing, so I was very happy this morning. At school, it was just a normal day, and we didn't do much. A friend at school asked that day if I wanted to go sledding that afternoon. And that night, I didn't have any homework and didn't have hockey practice that night, so I could go sledding. That afternoon, I went to the closet for the first time that year to get my snow pants and coat. Then my friend and I went to the hill in my backyard with our sleds and plastic snowboards. We went down the hill a bunch of times and we were having a lot of fun. Then we were moving lots of snow to make a jump to go off. We went off the jump many times with both the snowboards and the sleds. And it was getting darker, so we were going to go down a few more times and then head in for the night. Me and him went on a two-person slide, and we were veering away from the ramp, and we hit a grass patch, and the sled stopped, and we both fell off, and I landed on the ground, and he landed on my arm. My arm felt like lots of blood was rushing to it, and it was super warm, and it really hurt bad. I could tell my arm hurt really bad when I walked back to the house, and when I got there I had to take off all my clothes with one hand because I couldn't use it. When I finally got all my stuff off, I called my mom, and she was at work, but she answered, and I told her what happened when I was sledding. And she said her good friend that lives in the neighborhood would come to the house and check on me. When she got to my house, I let her in, and I sat down on the couch, and she had moved my arm and wrist around, and she said it could maybe be broken, but she didn't know for sure. When she left, I watched some TV, and when my mom got home, she said she made an appointment in the morning to go to Olmsted and x-rays for my arm. In the morning, we drove to Olmsted and we checked in, and we had to wait for a while. When the person came out and called my name, we went back to a room, and there were 3 people in the room waiting for me. 2 of them went into a room where they could control the x-ray machine, and the other one grabbed and covered and put it over me, and then they put my arm on a table. Then the machine moved, and they moved my arm in different angles and then did it again. After they were done, they brought me to a room where my mom was, and we waited for a while. A doctor came into the room and went on the computer, pulled up the pictures of the x-rays, and showed me that I broke my arm. He said I broke my ulna and my pisiform. Then they brought me to a different room, and they said they were going to put a soft cast on my arm to reduce the swelling. Then he said that in a week I could come back and they would put on a hard cast. They grabbed these 2 shells and formed them to my arm, and then wrapped it with some cloth looking stuff, and then put on a strap, which then went over my shoulder. We left the hospital and went home, and then I got to the rest. I thought how this next couple of months were going to suck because I can't play all social school. It'd be hard because I broke my right hand, which is the one I write with.